Welcome back to Chapter 17 of Price Analysis, a fundamental approach to the study of commodity markets. In this final video for the chapter, we're going to talk about the crack spread, which relates crude oil prices with gasoline and diesel prices. So, like the soybean crush and the cattle crush and the ethanol crush that we covered before, the crack spread can be used to hedge or speculate on refining margins, or the profitability of refining crude oil. In this case, the spread trade consists of a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 contracts of crude oil, 2 contracts of gasoline, and 1 contract of ultra-low sulfur diesel. And the reason that those proportions are used is because when you refine 1 barrel of crude oil, you get roughly 2/3 back as gasoline and 1/3 back as diesel fuel. Now, we talked in earlier videos that those proportions can be varied based on the economics of refining, but roughly that's the way the ratios work out. And as we have experienced before, these multi-product spread trades are usually a little bit of an approximation to the actual production process in terms of the quantities represented. So 3-to-1 ratio is going to be close enough to reflect, generally speaking, trends in refining margins. So a note about computing crack spreads. In the figure that you see there is constructed using the West Texas Intermediate crude oil futures contract. That's the crude oil contract that trades on the NYMEX exchange. RBOB gasoline, which is the gasoline contract that trades on the NYMEX exchange. And ultra-low sulfur diesel, which is the diesel contract that trades on the NYMEX exchange. Now, you oftentimes will see the crack spread computed from spot prices, and that probably makes a lot more sense if you're taking spot prices from a location where, basically from the same location, than if you're talking about the crack spread of refiners in Louisiana. Then you're going to use you're going to compute the crack spread with spot prices in Louisiana, or other regions, you're going to use their local spot prices. However, it's so convenient to use the futures prices to get a general sense about refining profitability because we get such frequent and easily accessible prices from the futures market that I decided to compute them and include it here. Okay, so let me talk about the equation down here first of all. We talked already about how the crack spread is 3 contracts of crude oil, that's represented in this 3 here, 2 contracts of gasoline, that's represented by that 2, and 1 contract of ultra-low sulfur diesel, that's represented by the 1. And you see, just like all of our other multi-product spreads, the products that the refiner will sell, that is gasoline and diesel, are revenue parts of the production process, so they get pluses. And crude oil is the input, and so it's costly for them to buy crude oil on the market, so we minus it as a cost. And their business model is essentially buying crude oil at this price and turning it into gasoline and diesel in these proportions. Alright, so let's explain the rest of the numbers in this equation. What is this 42 about, that we have it multiplied by the gasoline price and by the diesel price? So there are 42 gallons in a barrel, if you're talking about energy markets, and prices for gasoline and diesel are quoted in dollars per gallon, so multiplying it by 42 translates it into dollars per barrel, which is an appropriate conversion to make if we're trying to think about profitability per barrel of crude oil refined. Okay? So that's what the 42s are doing. And since crude oil is quoted in dollars per barrel, we don't need any 42 on that term. We do have to divide the whole thing by 3, though, if we want the crack spread to be in dollars per barrel. because the way we've set up the proportions here, without dividing by 3, it would be the crack spread from refining 3 barrels of oil. Because you buy 3 barrels of oil, you get 2 barrels of gasoline, 1 barrel of diesel, and that's your production margin. But we want to compute it as dollars per barrel, so we divide by 3. Alright, so let's take a look at this chart over time. The chart runs from 2010 to almost the end of 2017. And you can see here that refining profitability is pretty variable. There's a lot of rapid peaks and valleys and a lot of kind of random movement within the series. But it doesn't seem to be trending upward or trending downward over time. It's kind of staying within this range. It's a pretty wide range, from about $15 per barrel to as high as $40 per barrel. But it does appear to be fairly stationary. So just to wrap up this video and this chapter, recall, we're not going to talk about it in detail, but recall that this spread can be used by refiners to hedge their profit margins, or it can be used by speculators to speculate whether profitability will increase or decrease in the near future. So that does it for the videos for Chapter 17. I will see you guys later.